In this video, I'm going to show you how I made my version of the classic strawberry shortcake using Bisquick's original cookbook. If you haven't joined me on my previous videos where I started the journey of recreating these classic recipes out of Bisquick's cookbook, then join me as I recreate this version. I chose the strawberry shortcake because I had a craving and this seemed right up my alley of sweets that I wanted to try and recreate. As far as the supplies goes, I got what I thought would suit me. For example, I picked up lactate milk because I cannot stomach regular milk anymore. So yeah, we're going to improvise just a little bit. Another thing the recipe calls for is a whipped cream or a Cool Whip. So I decided to go with Cool Whip because I feel like it holds its consistency a lot longer than that of aerosol canned whipped cream. So jumping straight into the recipe, I'm going to wash my full 2 pounds of strawberries and I'm going to prepare them for maceration. Maceration of the strawberries is basically the process where you take your strawberries and you add sugar to them. When you add sugar to them, it starts a breakdown of the sugar in the strawberries and it starts to sweeten up and become watery. So the sugar draws out the water from the strawberries and you start to get like a sweet syrupy consistency once it sits long enough. For strawberries to macerate, you only need about an hour for the process to actually take effect and taste good. But if you want them softer and you want the syrupy water to be thicker, then you wait longer. I say at least 24 hours. And that's what we're going to do. The recipe calls for a 1 hour maceration and I am going to do for 24 hours. But we're going to do them both so that way you can see the difference, and I think it looks better in presentation when you do it both ways. I know this recipe calls for a lot of sugar, but do not be afraid. This actually, again, helps break down the strawberries so it can start its syrupy process. Once you have your strawberries and your sugar mixed, you're going to go cover that and you're going to put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. But in our case, 24 hours. If you opted for the 24-hour process, then you're going to wait until the next day to start preparing your shortcakes. After a full 24 hours, we're going to take our strawberries out the refrigerator, and this is what they look like. This version of leaving the strawberries in the fridge for 24 hours will allow you to create a shortcake that is not as dry. Even though they're called shortcakes, I would say they're more like a biscuit due to its slight dryness. So you will need that strawberry juice to moisten up the shortcake. But in the meantime, I'm still going to prepare another set of strawberries the way the cookbook advised, so that way you can see the actual difference. So once we have our strawberry slices, we're going to once again take some sugar and cover our strawberry slices with it. But this time around, we're only going to allow the maceration process for a full 1 hour. In the meantime, we're going to begin our shortcake mix. Now, do as I say, not as I do. While I was recording this, I was actually following the instructions of the recipe book word for word. And what I would advise before adding any of the wets to this mixture is to mix all of your dry before you add the liquid. What I realized late after the fact was that it didn't mix the sugar all the way through, so some biscuits tasted a little bit more sweet than others did, and I realized that the ingredients were not mixed all the way through because I added my wets before I had completely mixed my dries. This was not something that the cookbook mentioned, but this was a trial and error process, so I'm just passing on this tidbit for y'all. So I went in mixing this with a fork before I eventually realized that it became a little bit too tough to properly mix. So eventually I go in with my hands and make it do what it do. The recipe called for this to yield 6 shortcakes, so I divided up the dough to 6 even balls. So I have another cooking pointer for you guys. When you put them into the oven, make sure you flatten them down quite a bit, because I realized shortly after I put them in that they weren't going to spread out and fluff like I thought they would. So give them a little help and flatten them down just a little bit to end up giving them a shape like this. I did this fairly shortly after I put them in while the dough was still soft. So here on the left, we have strawberries that's been macerated for at least 24 hours. And on the right, we have the strawberries that's been macerated for only 1 hour. And while the biscuits are still warm, you want to slice through them horizontally and evenly. And again, as you can see, the strawberries on the left has way more liquid in it, and the strawberries on the right, being as though they only sat for 1 hour, barely has any liquid in it. How I suggest layering the shortcake is adding some of the drier strawberries first, and then some of the wet, and then, drizzle it with some of the strawberry juices just so that it soaks down into the bottom part of the shortcake. Once you have your strawberries laid out, go ahead and add your Cool Whip and layer it on top of that. I like a lot of Cool Whip, so I'm going to add a hefty dollop of Cool Whip on top of my strawberries. After your Cool Whip, you're going to add your shortcake top on top of it, and then you're going to once again add some strawberries. But this time you're going to use the wetter set of strawberries to top on the top of the shortcake. Make sure you allow some of that strawberry juice to drizzle down the side and let it absorb into the shortcake. It'll make it that much better. Being as though this is my first go around, I'm going to go ahead and taste test this, but then I'm going to recreate it so that it's more visually appealing. But for now, we're going to dive into this and eat it in full. But I'm going to let you know now, I loved it. I would definitely suggest that if your shortcake hardens, you can just sit it in the microwave with a wet towel over it. It'll add the moisture right on back, and you can store it inside of a container that has a lid. But in this case, the only thing that was missing was a little bit more of that strawberry juice. So I'm just going to go back and drizzle a little bit more. It actually makes a big difference and tastes so delicious. So yes, that's why I definitely suggested that you macerate your strawberries for more than 24 hours so that way you can get all this strawberry syrup. Once I had it with that additional strawberry syrup, it was on. I couldn't have enough of it. It was really, really delicious. So that's why I wanted to add it to this recipe as a way that you can just make this original recipe so much better. With the taste test now out the way, I knew what the shortcake needed from start to finish. So now let's rebuild it with what we learned in mind. With this recipe, I can definitely foresee making it for a Valentine's, Galentine's, baby shower, anything of the sort like that where something simple is needed but also needs to be visually appealing. To make it even better, I had powdered sugar on deck, so check me out. Yeah, definitely making this again.
I don't have to find an aesthetic. I am an aesthetic. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out here right now who's going into Pinterest trying to type up all these adjectives to describe me.
This dessert is so beautiful when layered like this, and to make it even better, I would suggest topping it with a little powdered sugar. A little goes a long way, and visually, it looks like a dream. I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for more Bisquick cookbook recipes that I'll recreate and make just slightly better.